I came in second.
You came in second. This year you were a runner-up this year. So Gary will be at our Grand Slam this year, as well as Darlene. Gary Blevins, everyone.
I love this venue. I love Novel, by the way. Like about once a year, Josh will do a show here, and I'm a big fan of this particular venue, and it's because we're closer, and I feel like it's a better connection for this type of storytelling. So I'm gonna start by telling you that I am a political junkie. I was a political science major in college. I studied at the University of Wisconsin, and this story is not about politics. Okay? My wife and I lived in Iowa in 2008. Okay? More accurately, more importantly, in 2007, in the run-up to the Iowa caucus. That was on January 2nd in 2008. Now, to take some folks back, or for some younger folks that weren't aware of what was happening at the time, this is the Democratic campaign. My wife and I are Democrats, and again, that's not relevant to the story either, but we were paying attention to the Democratic primary. And this is Hillary Clinton versus Barack Obama, and there's some other people in the mix, but really those are the only two that were in there. And it was fascinating because we were in Council Bluffs, Iowa, which is right across the river from Omaha. And so it was one of the bigger media markets in Iowa. So we got, like, all the surrogates would show up, right? And so the surrogates are basically people that would come and endorse you and that were important enough to draw a crowd. And so we got a chance to see, of course, Hillary Clinton, we saw Barack Obama speak, and we got to see Madeleine Albright, who was the Secretary of State, who was just an amazing person. I asked her a question about, and this was, I think, legit my question. What do you think about the changing situation in Russia? She spoke for 24 minutes, right? And it was brilliant. She had an odd speaking style. She stood perfectly still the entire time, like she was behind a podium. But she was fascinating, and it was just a real pleasure to be able to be there for that kind of political moment, right? And I will say that in the earlier stages, we weren't sure who we were supporting because we'd been Clinton supporters for a long time, big fans of Bill Clinton and so on. But then here's this Barack Obama, right? But my favorite moment from in the middle of all of that, again, political junkie, since I was old enough to know. My mother, my earliest political memory, my mother had us canvassing for Mondale in 1984. Right? I was 8, right? So this is kind of the upbringing, right? So when I say political junkie, like I was there. Long story. But anyway, so my favorite moment in that campaign was when we got the chance to go see Michelle Obama. Now, I'd been an admirer of Michelle Obama, even though I wasn't sure whether or not I was going to vote for her husband or not, but I had been watching her particularly carefully because she was a reluctant political figure, right? Like, she just happened to be married to somebody who was on this meteoric rise. And he couldn't have done it without her. There's no doubt about that. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But she still, it was clear to me anyway, and to most observers, that she wasn't sure whether or not she wanted to be there, right? So she was in Iowa in December, just like 4 or 5 days before the caucus, and she's at this like nowhere diner in Red Hawk, Iowa. And there's maybe 15 people there. And we got there, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes before she was supposed to go on, and I had used the restroom, so I had gone back to the restroom, and it's a like little tiny like mom and pop diner, so there's a little kind of vestibule in front of the bathrooms, and I go into the bathroom, but when I come out of the bathroom, there's Michelle Obama, like standing in front of the bathrooms and like kind of preparing herself, and she had an aide with her that was kind of talking to her, but then the aide went out, and I'm standing like in this kind of small room with Michelle Obama. And I strike up a conversation because, you know, it's, when am I gonna have this opportunity again? Right? And And at that point, again, we're just a couple days from the caucus, and I had pretty well decided that I was going to caucus for Obama in the campaign because we had seen him speak, and I had never seen people cry at a political event before. From a speech that we had seen on TV a dozen times before. It was the same stump speech that we'd been hearing for months. But there was something about him in the room that just reverberated with people, and I knew that he was going to be the next president of the United States right then. So I was talking to her, and she, seemed a little nervous. She seemed a little kind of tired. Obviously, she'd been on the road for a long time. And I asked her if she had heard the news of the day. And there had been something that had just happened in Pakistan, and the prime minister had died, and there was some follow-up news that went with that. And I wasn't sure whether or not she was getting questions about it. So I wanted to make sure that she was prepared to hear the news of the day. And she looked up at me, because she'd kind of been like futzing with her watch and trying to, get ready to go out on stage. Right? A dozen people are waiting for the show to start, right? But she seemed nervous, and she looked up at me, and she kind of got this panic in her face, like what? Like she didn't know whether or not a reporter was going to come at her with this, and she got, I won't say she got upset, but you could tell that she was under stress, right? And I said, I told her what the news was, and it wasn't anything earth-shattering. It was just something that had happened to hear on the radio that, that maybe she hadn't been briefed on in the last 45 minutes, right? And she kind of looked at me, and she kind of started to shake a little bit. And I could tell that she was just exhausted, right? She's just this other person standing there. And I said to her, I kind of reached down, I touched her elbow, which thinking back now, that was probably weird. But, but I touched her elbow, and I looked at her, and I said, "You're doing great. You're doing great. Just keep going. Just keep going. You're doing great." And then her aide came by, and she looked at me, and she said, "Thank you." She turned and she walked out and became First Lady of the United States. And you're welcome. Now, of course, I don't have. I'm not going to take any credit for the extraordinary person that Michelle Obama became, or was when she was standing in that, outside of that bathroom in nowhere, Iowa. But it was an important moment for me because it reminded me even then that no matter how strong you think they are, how impressive they are, man, they're just people. Right? And they're going to have the same anxieties and the same concerns and the same worries as the rest of us. And they're just people. And that's what government is. They're just people. Right? So, again, it's not a political speech. It's not a political story. But I just remember that because I've worked in that space so frequently, and people are imperfect. And they're not going to be able to do everything that we want them to do. But be kind. Right? There's nothing wrong with taking a moment and saying, "You're doing a good job. Keep doing what you're doing." So, thanks so much. All right.